Hey guys, welcome on into the next NHL season preview show. And today we're going to be talking all about the New York Islanders, looking at their additions and subtractions, coming free agents for the upcoming season, a possible lineup for opening night, team future bets, and player future bets for the upcoming season. And to talk about the Islanders, I brought back the same two guys that came in last year to talk about the Islanders: Nick Earl from Earl Sports Bets and Scott Reichel. But for people that haven't seen you guys before, maybe give you a brief introduction of yourself. We'll start with Nick.
Yeah. Earl Sports Bets on YouTube. That's about it. You guys have seen me a couple other previews and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm a man of many words when it comes to introducing myself.
All right. Well, you can find Nick's Twitter in the description below, and then yes, search up Earl Sports Bets on YouTube. Scott, for people that haven't seen you before, let them know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at Ratio Radio. You can find me on Winners and Winers. Been there for, I don't even know, 7 years at this point. But I am doing free pick videos every night. So if you do want some bonus picks, give you an episode there. Also doing the college football show with Steen on Winners and Winers. So once again, doing a lot of content there. Also, if you follow the Sports Game Podcast Network, I do podcasts there. WNBA, tennis, MLB, pretty much every sport you can think of, I'm on there too. So you can find a lot of content, all free on my Twitter, one uniform location at Ratio Radio.
Awesome. Perfect. We're going to jump right into it. And I was kind of laughing before we started the show. The additions and subtractions list here for the Islanders. Quite a big list here for me to go over. I'll start first, as I usually do, starting with the subtractions. Cal Clutterbuck, former Minnesota Wild player, got traded to the Islanders and finally is finding another team. I don't believe he's signed anywhere yet, so
No.
He's currently a free agent. We'll see what happens there. Sebastian Aho, not the Sebastian Aho most people are probably thinking about, but the defensive guy. He's also gone, and Robert Pertuzzo, physical depth defenseman, is also gone. And then coming in is Anthony Duclair, which was the big signing for the Islanders. Some offensive depth, pretty much exactly what the Islanders need. And then Liam Foudy, a younger guy who has potential, and we'll see if he makes the Islanders lineup and how he does. But really, in my opinion, signing younger guys is not a bad thing for this Islanders team at all. So taking a shot with him, it's not going to hurt them to have him in the organization. So we'll see how that goes there. Scott, we'll start with you for this one. Additions and subtractions. What do you think about the Islanders offseason?
Yeah, for Lou, it's not that bad of a list. No, but overall, I think that it was a decent offseason for the Islanders. Can't say it was anything that bad. In reality, they lose to Carolina almost every year in the playoffs. They're not the most talented team in the world, but they find ways to remain competitive by making it pretty ugly. Not so much this past year, though, because they had a lot of high-scoring games, which kind of surprised me. The main issue for this team, which is why they fired the coach mid-season, didn't really get fixed. I would say rock bottom was probably the Winter Classic game against the Rangers, whatever the hell that third period was. Point is, though, they blew a bunch of leads. They couldn't hold on to a lead to save their lives, and as a result, they did end up forfeiting a bunch of free points. But they made the playoffs anyway, and they were able to not get swept by Carolina. So that counts for something. But point is, they got destroyed in the playoff series, blew a 3-0 lead in Game 2. I don't want to talk about that either. Point is, though, the Islanders were fine last year. We think year in, year out, they're going to compete for a wild card spot. The question is, do they get it? Last year they did. Surprisingly not because of Sorokin, though. Mostly because of Varlamov in the back half of the season, who kind of took over the starting goaltender job in that tandem. So I think the team will be fine. Do I think they're going to be a great team? No. Are they going to be bad? No. The offseason moves, Duclair's a good goal scorer. He has kind of jumped around, but he has been a pretty steady 20 goals per season guy, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for the Islanders, it's a ton. I'll take that any day of the week. Point is, though, you are looking at relying on some younger guys. Of course, you have the high prospect who is expected to contribute immediately for this team in Siplakov. I believe I pronounced that either poorly or correctly. Point is, though, he's supposed to be good, so we'll see how he looks maybe on the second line. They were a bit injured last year. You mentioned that Pertuzzo left. I believe he was a rental. Mayfield, though, did miss about half the season, so he should be coming back. Am I a Mayfield guy? No. But they paid him a lot of money, and he was viewed as being a a top 2 pair defenseman, and now he's back in the lineup. So I do think that should help a little bit. Team should be fine. My guess is hovering for a wild card spot, probably finishing in the high 80s, low 90s in points. Same story every year. That's kind of where I'll go about it.
All right. Nick, what do you think your additions and subtractions?
Yeah, let's let Lou cook here. Anthony Duclair, I like that he could be kind of like a flashy goal scorer. Obviously, we got the addition I think you forgot to put in here with Maxim. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. That Scott mentioned from the KHL. They signed him and brought him in. He was going to be on the second line. We'll talk about him in a little bit probably. So, I mean, they made a few additions there. Clutterbuck, I think, is addition by subtraction, along with Matt Martin, which Matt Martin's on a PTO right now. I don't think he'll make the team. Robert Bertuzzo is a nice little pickup. They picked him off of waivers halfway through the year with all their blue line injuries, and then he just played himself into a starting role. And losing Sebastian Aho, the only thing I'm going to miss is the constant Aho jokes when I go to Carolina Islander games here in Raleigh. Other than that, yeah, he's just a depth guy. I still found it funny where, and I think it was the December game, both Ahos scored in that game. But for me, I like the additions that they got with Duclair and with Maxim. Clutterbuck's addition by subtraction, and I think Bertuzzo is the one I'm going to miss the most.
Bertuzzo is surprisingly average for a guy we picked up midseason to fix our depth issues. So I was shocked he actually turned out to be as useful as he was. I think all the analytics hated him when the Islanders picked him up, and he actually turned out to be decent. But I feel like the main thing I'll mention quickly with Clutterbuck and Martin no longer being there, rest in peace to the calling card of this team for the last decade, the fourth line, which was something the Islanders prided themselves on. Probably a reason why Terry memes the team, because they pride themselves on the fourth line instead of actually scoring goals. Point is, though, you lost a couple of staples on the roster, and they're trying to, I don't want to use the word evolve because that's giving Lou too much credit, but they're shifting into something else that counts for something. But no Clutterbuck and probably no Martin. The era of the fourth line seems to be over. I'll end it on that point.
Awesome. When it comes to Maxim Tisplakov.
Okay.
Your guess is as good as mine.
I thought I was close. Okay, I'll take it.
I don't know. I somehow missed him in the additions and subtractions, and then he's not listed here on the depth chart on the site I use to make possible lineup. So I'm glad that you guys mentioned him, because really I wouldn't have even mentioned it at all. So right now he's not listed on the depth chart. We'll see, obviously, if he makes the team, but yeah.
I was trying to find his stats, but I'm pretty sure he had a pretty solid time over there in the KHL. I'm just quickly trying to see.
He was a sniper in the KHL.
Yeah, I just wanted to find his exact stats.
He should make this team.
He should. Last year
he didn't
in the
sign
KHL,
with the Islanders to play in Bridgeport. I know that.
Yeah, he had 31 goals in the KHL last year, so he should be a pretty solid goal scorer.
Okay, well, we'll have to kind of fit him into the lineup live, even though he won't be on the sheet, but we'll get there in the segment after this one. Upcoming free agents, and we'll start with Nick first with this one. A bigger list here. So no goalies expiring. Sorokin and Varlamov's deals are still multi-year deals. So no goalies to worry about when it comes to upcoming free agents, but we've got some forwards here. We've got some defensemen. Who do you think the Isles should be focusing in on most on re-signing, and who would you be okay if they let go elsewhere?
Number one foremost for me is Noah Dobson. I think he's going to be the guy that quarterbacks for power play for years to come. So I would extend him out, give him 5x7, 5x8, and move on kind of with him. He's the guy that I would want to build around on the blue line, just offensively. Romanov, I would give him a couple years as well, maybe, because Romanov and Dobson, I kind of like that line where you have Dobson could be the offensive defenseman, Romanov's the defensive defenseman in that pairing. So I kind of like the way those two mesh. Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri have done basically nothing but score goals for the Islanders per Islanders standards. They've been the two of the better goal scorers on this team. I would look to extend them. They're getting up there in age, so it wouldn't be as long. It'd be like a 1 or 2 year deal. Can you continue to do things like that? I need to see more from Fasching, Wahlstrom, and Holstrom before extending them or anything along those lines, because they're depth guys that they haven't really proved too much yet. So I kind of want to see what they do going forward. But the top guys I would go for is Dobson's, I think, by far the most important one, in my opinion, and then followed by probably Romanov, Nelson, and Palmieri.
Perfect. Scott, what do you think? Who should the Isles be re-signing?
Yeah, I think the main options are going to be the usual suspects here, with Brock Nelson, who's been on the team as the main goal scorer for multiple years at this point. Still pretty consistent. You could argue that he's not meant to be the number one goal scorer on the team, but he still gives you, I don't know, around like 30 per year, give or take, maybe a little bit less than that. So you probably bring him back in general for a team that needs as much offensive help as they can get. Palmieri had a bit of a shaky season last year to start. Then he randomly picked it all in late, and he was able to kind of get back on track. He was good in the playoffs, so I expect him to maybe bring him back on a short deal, especially with Lou, of course, who loves his former Devils players. So probably get Palmieri back in the future. Dobson, you have to keep. Dobson is kind of the main, I'd say, quarterback of your power play. Does he make too many mistakes? Yes. Is he useful with the puck in his hands? Yes. The Islanders don't have many defensemen that can actually handle the puck, so I think you have to bring Dobson back. It kind of brings me back to my other option, though. I'm going to skip over Romanov, who I like his physicality. I kind of want to see a bit more offensively. I like Mike Riley, who kind of came out of nowhere last year. Nobody ever really heard of him, and I thought he was pretty good last year. I know that his overall stats were fine for, I'd say, a top 2 pair, or maybe even like a potential bottom pair defenseman, but 6 goals, 18 assists, -1 and plus minus, played 60-plus games. I thought it was pretty good. He's kind of bounced around the league for different teams. I actually liked it. You could probably get him for cheap. I'd bring Riley back as kind of a sleeper option. I thought he was good with the defensive core last year.
Awesome. I can't really add too much to what you guys did, but I will mention Samuel Bolduc has been a prospect that has had some potential. So Isles' defense here is, I don't want to say crowded, but he is an RFA, so he might get re-signed to a cheap deal, or maybe they go elsewhere. But we'll see if he can make the lineup. Wahlstrom, he's been the guy that I've been shocked at how he would be just riding the bench a lot last year. And he is a guy with offensive talent, and maybe he needs a fresh start. Maybe the Islanders need to look to move him, maybe get in another forward. Maybe there's another guy in another team that's kind of struggling and you can do a 1-for-1, because a lot of the time we see those deals happen and both guys flourish with a change of scenery. So maybe that's what Wahlstrom needs, but we'll have to see what happens after this year. But I agree, Dobson, obviously number one. And Brock Nelson can go home to Minnesota if he wants.
Well, that means you'll take him. So there's a compliment somewhere in there. So that's how I interpret
Yeah,
it.
no, exactly. There is. But now we're talking about possible lineup, and of course, as we mentioned, Maxim is not on this list, but he is listed as a right winger. So maybe he finds himself on the third line, and maybe Engvall moves over to where McLean is.
There are rumors might even be second line. I've heard rumors about second line, but we'll see what happens. It really depends on how desperately they need the goal scoring.
I was going to say, I saw him on number 3 on the second line.
Okay, I'll quickly go first, and then we'll get both of your guys' opinion. But not obviously, I didn't have him on this list because I did this list by what a depth chart says, and he's not on there. So obviously, if he is a 30-goal scorer from the KHL, yeah, you could see him probably in that, maybe where Palmieri is. Maybe put Palmieri down, or maybe he starts in the third line. Oliver Wahlstrom is kind of listed as depth guy that will probably be in and out of the lineup. So there's that. The defense is good. The Islanders have kind of always had a good defense. And maybe last year, defensively, their numbers, I got attacked on last year's show, talking about the Islanders being that better defensive team and not as good offensively. And then, of course, we saw what happened last year. Their defense went down and their offense improved. So I'm not trying to make judgments and piss off any Islanders fans that may comment, but I like the defense. And I expect them to improve this year. especially with a full year of Patrick Waugh. And then the goaltending, that's where I think there's some question marks here. Sorokin coming off back surgery. Apparently, he's good to go to start the season. Everything's fine. But a goalie getting back surgery puts up alarm bells for me. He struggled last year. We'll have to see how he does after that surgery. Varlamov is getting up there in age, but we'll kind of talk about the goalies and their win totals coming up here in a bit. But for me, the question marks are with the goaltending and maybe the bottom six of the forward group. But the defense I like, top two lines. Overall, I like. Scott, we'll start with you second here. Possible lineup. What are your thoughts on the lineup here?
Yeah, for me, my main concern is the bottom two lines, which I feel like most Islanders fans had issues with. I know Cizikas was very solid last year. He's had injury issues, so hopefully he can stay healthy. Engvall's a guy the Islanders fans hated for most of last year. And he was actually decent for the last month or so, but a lot of Islanders fans weren't exactly happy with him. Point is, though, you're looking at the other options. Pajot was invisible for most of last year. Islanders fans didn't really like him either. Holmstrom's good shorthanded. That's basically it. I don't think he really did much besides that. Fasching's a pretty generic bottom six guy. I don't think he's an amazing forward by any means. Islanders fans think he's serviceable, but they kind of want a bit more consistency out of him, or at least maybe more, I'd say big plays out of him. It kind of seems like he is doing his job, but you kind of want him to see a bit more creative offensively, and I don't know if he has that gear in him. So I think the first two lines are fun, especially if Maxim develops, but you're looking at the third lines you have on paper and the fourth line. Once again, Maxim maybe being in there could switch some things. But I thought McLean was fine. Pajot wasn't that great last year. Engvall wasn't that great last year. Holmstrom was fine shorthanded. Cizikas gets injured, but he's very good when he's healthy. And Fasching's kind of just there. So that's kind of the main issue I have is the bottom overall two lines for this team. Not to mention the fact this penalty kill was atrocious. So even though the power play got better, they couldn't kill a penalty to save their lives for the entire season last year, and Carolina killed them in the playoffs on the power play. So that's kind of one concern I have. It's mostly going to be about special teams again, but from the opposite side of it, where can they please kill a penalty? They used to be good at killing penalties, not so much anymore. That's my main concern, the special teams and the bottom six and the bottom two lines in general. I need to see some guys step up, and I'm questioning if they actually can do so.
Awesome. Patrick Waugh as coach, I feel like the penalty kill has to get better this year. I feel like he won't tolerate anything less. So maybe there's a different head coach or a different assistant coach that'll be in charge of that. There's things he can do to kind of switch things around. So yeah, that was definitely an issue for the Islanders last year. Nick, possible lineup. What do you think of this lineup for the Isles?
Yeah, I think that top line's spot on. Anders Lee in the year 2024 should be playing on the third or fourth line, more preferably the fourth line. I get it, he's the captain, but he doesn't got it anymore. Like that, that's where Maxim is going to be. I have him slotted where Anders Lee is. I have McLean slotted where Holmstrom is, and I think Fasching, Holmstrom, and Wahlstrom are going to probably trade out the one spot there. Maybe Cizikas as well. And when it comes to the penalty kill there from last year, yeah, it struggled. Also, when you look at it, Pelech missed 24 games. Pulock missed 24 games. I mean, Scott Mayfield missed 47 games last year. Half their decor was gone last year. That's why they had to pick up Bertuzzo. That's why Sebastian Aho played 58 games last year as somebody who should be a healthy scratch for more than half of them. When you have Robert Bertuzzo playing 23 games because you don't have depth at defenseman and you have Bolduc playing 34 games, yeah, your penalty kill is going to struggle because you don't have your key cogs there. And that's why the penalty kill struggled, because the blue line was torn to shreds last year. So give me Pelech and Pulock healthy, hopefully this year, which they've struggled with injuries years past. So I'm hoping they can stay healthy. If they can stay healthy, Romanov stays healthy, and the blue line stays fine, I think the penalty kill improves. I think that was more injury laden rather than actual play, because you had guys playing in the positions that they were not used to on the penalty kill. And also Sorokin was playing hurt half year. It felt like half the year. And I feel like they overplayed Sorokin. So I'm hoping we get a little bit more of a split between Varlamov and Sorokin when it comes to games played here. Because that's probably why we saw Sorokin got a back surgery in the offseason, because he got overplayed. I think there was one part in the year Varlamov was hurt. And Sorokin, played 13 straight games or something along those lines without getting a day off. Like, they killed him. So that's kind of where I'm looking at for this. I have Maxim up on the second line, and give me a healthy blue line. The penalty kill will be better.
All right. Scott, do you have any thoughts on the goalies?
The goalies don't bother me. Sorokin, assuming that he's going to be healthy, I have faith in him to bounce back. I do agree that he was overworked last year. And then Varlamov, ironically, became overworked at the end of the year because he had to play every game after that, and he carried them to the playoffs. But I think overall it's a pretty good duo. Sorokin, assuming that he's healthy, I know he struggled last year, still top 10 as far as I'm concerned in goalies. Varlamov's a very solid backup who's getting up there in years, but he was effective last year. So I'm not really concerned by that. I do think the main concern for me is the penalty kill and, of course, blowing third period leads. But when you can't stop anybody from scoring a power play goal, you're going to blow games in the third period. So that's kind of one issue that I had. They couldn't stay out of the box. They couldn't kill penalties. Hopefully, the healthier D-core helps with that. That was my main issue. It was the bottom six and mostly just the lack of discipline and the lack of, I'd say, defensive principles on the penalty kill. If they address those, it should be fine.
Okay. We'll move on to team future bets. Looking at future bets for the Islanders for this upcoming season. And I will let Nick start here first with this one. Nick, team future bets, what do you think?
Yeah, is there a future bet for them to make the playoffs and lose in the first round? I want to bet that because that's exactly what they're going to do.
You win your bet to make the playoffs, then you bet the winnings on the other team in the first round.
There you go. I'll take yes to make the playoffs minus 105. I feel like each and every year that the Islanders are that trendy pick of, the team that made the playoffs last year that'll miss it this year. It's always Islanders, 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 and then Islanders. Like, everybody and their mom picks it, trying to get cute, and the Islanders make the playoffs every year in a wild card spot, and they get bounced in the first round. Like, I think they've made the playoffs, 5 of the last 6 years, something along those lines. And the one year they didn't make it, they started with a 13-game road trip, and then when they got home, half the time COVID. So that was the fun year of, I think that was the last year of Barry Trotz, where just anything that could go wrong did go wrong. But yeah, the Islanders are a playoff team. They're a wild card team, and that's it. And I will continue to say it. It's a new year, same shit. They're a wild card team. Yes, make the playoffs. They probably go over their points, probably get 95 points. And get either the Metro 3 or a wild card spot, and then they get bounced against Carolina again, because why not? So yeah, no, for me, it's make the playoffs at minus 105. Maybe you sprinkle the over points, and that's about it.
We already did the Carolina show, but I have the Hurricanes taking a step back this year. Now, how big of a step back is a question mark, but maybe if the Islanders do make the playoffs, maybe Carolina won't be the issue this year. We'll have to see. Scott, what do you think team future bets for the Isles?
I think I agree about them making the playoffs. I like the minus 105, maybe the points over as well. But in reality, you mentioned Carolina taking a step back. They lost a lot of guys, but they still won 111 points last year. They had that. So a step back still might be enough to beat the Islanders. They might still get to 100, but Carolina should take a step back. The Rangers are the Rangers. Not going to bother there. They're the class of the division. The Capitals made the playoffs somehow with a negative goal differential. They're one of the worst playoff teams of all time, and they got swept. So I thought the Capitals were regressing, had a great run at the end of the year, mostly because of hot goaltending. So I think they'll regress back because I think we agree they're well past the prime for the most part. Pittsburgh had 88 points last year. Maybe they step up, maybe not. Crosby isn't aware of what he's worth on the market, I guess, because he keeps taking discounts. But point is, the Penguins should be fine. Every year it's the same story, though. The defense isn't good enough. The Carlson experiment hasn't really worked. And the power play was terrible for them last year. So we'll see how Pittsburgh does, but they don't really scare me that much. Philly had a decent run before they completely imploded. I think we all know about Tortorella burnout. I don't expect them to look as good the year after. Tortorella team seems to wear his welcome 2 years in, 2.5 years in. We're kind of getting to that point. I do wonder when Philly might end up imploding under Tortorella, because it kind of happens everywhere he goes. So not sold on them either. New Jersey's really the question mark here, because Columbus is going to be terrible. So New Jersey was supposed to be good. They were awful. So I don't really know what to expect from this team. You could argue that they're like the Sabres of the Metro, where they're supposed to be good every year, and they don't actually do anything. So maybe the Devils actually show up for once. But I think they're a playoff team. One thing about the Islanders, whether you like them or not, they're consistent. You know what you're going to get for the most part? Around 90 points. They'll be in the mix. And with the Metro being just an absolute circus last year, I trust them more than other teams they'll be competing with. So I'll go with the Islanders to make the playoffs. Can Pittsburgh surpass them? Maybe. Very old roster. I don't like Carlson's defensive chops at this point in his career. And the goaltending's always been a concern for that team for the last couple of years. So I do think that even though it was decent last year, is that sustainable? I don't know. But with question marks surrounding pretty much every team in the Metro besides the Rangers, I'll pick the Islanders to be consistent enough to get to 93. Give me them to get the Metro 3.
And one thing to touch on Crosby taking discounts, he continues to take 8.7. Like that SEMA.
He won't move. I mean, he won't move off 8.7.
Yeah. And here's the thing. He kind of has to if he wants to keep the roster the same way because of how much they pay Carlson and how much they're paying Letang and how much they're paying Malkin to do basically nothing every year now. He has to take discounts.
That's also the problem, though, because Pittsburgh's stuck in 2017. They keep sticking with the same core.
Yeah, and they're just pushing the rebuild back more and more and more and more. Yes.
I don't want to ask.
Now we know Islanders fans don't like the Penguins, especially Nicholas Earl, who might be a little bit biased. But
I'm honest.
Yes, anyways,
they haven't made the playoffs that often the last couple of years. They've just been living in the past, and they haven't been able to adapt. But I'll ask you this though, Terry. Which team do you have more faith in for the upcoming season? The Islanders or the Penguins?
Ooh,
Penguins have kind of underachieved for the last couple of years, and they keep getting older. That's kind of the concern I have. They traded against the last.
They have an older roster than the Islanders do. Everyone makes fun of the old and slow Islanders. The Penguins are older and slower.
Yes, but they
have a lot of skill.
They haven't necessarily looked older and slower than the others. But I will say the Penguins did some things in the offseason. So they could improve, but they could also go backwards quite a bit as they are getting older. But I don't really want to touch on Pittsburgh because that show is coming up in a couple days after this one. So won't really touch too much there. But looking here at this, I'm going to be the contrarian here.
Really? You're fading the Islanders? I'm shocked.
I'm not betting it, but I would lean with no to make the playoffs. Okay. I don't like minus 125. I don't like the minus 125 price, but for me, the Devils' issue was not staying healthy and not having a goaltender. Yep. Well, they've got Markstrom, and they improved their defense to where that I like the Devils more than I like the Islanders. As long as the Devils stay healthy, I think they'll be competing for the division title.
Really?
Rangers are
division title. With Markstrom?
Yeah, I think they'll be competing with the Rangers.
I don't know if I'm that big of a Markstrom guy, but okay, I was not expecting division title to be in the Devils breakdown. Playoffs, okay, division title. I don't see them getting to like 110. I don't see that happening.
Well, I didn't say they're going to win it, but they're going to be competing for it with the Rangers. Carolina, I think, takes a step back. I don't know how big of a step back, but those are my top three in the Metro.
All right.
The Islanders, I think their main competitor, I think, is going to be Philadelphia. Tortorella, maybe he implodes, maybe that's possible, but I think Philadelphia is a team on the rise. So I would think about, and then Washington, again, they did a lot in the offseason. Really, other than Ovechkin getting to that goal number, what else is Washington really looking for? Like, I don't know if they think they're going to go far, if they do make a trip to the playoffs again, but I think it'll result in the same kind of thing that happened last year. So
I agree. Islanders make the playoffs. Same thing as last year. That's where I'm at.
No, I said Washington.
Washington.
Islanders can make the playoffs, but I think it's going to be so close that I can't recommend betting yes.
I just don't think Washington's that good.
But I'm not
Washington, I think, finishes below Pittsburgh potentially this year.
The goal differential, the goalie heating up at the right time. The Capitals were just such a fluky appearance from last year.
I think Capitals under points will 100% make my card for future.
My concern with Pittsburgh, by the way, just quickly, was the fact that Crosby and Malkin have actually been healthy. for the last couple of years, and they still haven't made the playoffs. Like, Malkin staying healthy back-to-back years is kind of shocking. I have to wonder if injuries hit them again, can they get by? They've been lucky with the injury bug the last couple of years, and they've still underachieved. That's kind of my red flag with Pittsburgh, because we know in the past Malkin had a bunch of injuries, Crosby had some injuries, some were concussion-related, but still. They've been healthy, and they've still underachieved. That's kind of my red flag with Pittsburgh. If they get hit by the injury bug, they don't have much depth based on how much they're paying the main four guys on that team. That's my main problem with Pittsburgh.
And I think that's why they kind of addressed it a little bit with some trades in the offseason. Obviously, probably not enough, but my issue with the Islanders here, though, so I like Carolina, the Rangers, and the Devils to be the top three. So the Islanders would have to compete for a wild card spot. And that Atlantic, Florida's going to be there. Toronto's going to be there. Boston, I think Boston's still a wild card team.
Tampa question mark?
Or maybe somewhere in the top three. Tampa Bay, everyone loves them. They got Gensel, but that team's power play is going to be so dangerous that I still see them being a playoff team. So really that leaves one spot. Buffalo is not happening, even though Sabres fans think it's going to finally happen. For me, it's Detroit. Detroit, Philadelphia. Those, I think, are the biggest teams that could push the Islanders out.
To be fair, if Larkin stays healthy, Detroit's got a shot, because when he got injured, they couldn't win a game. So if he stays healthy, they got a chance to do it.
I remember that. I remember that last year when Larkin was hurt. It was fade the Dead Wings.
It was rough for like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
not for me. I was betting against them. It was rough.
I was betting against them every game. It was great, but yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. But now going to player future bets here. I'll quickly mention what each player did last year and give my breakdown here. So starting with Bo Horvat, who played in 81 games last year. His closest to a full season since 2018-2019 when he played 82. Although he did play 56 in the shortened season 2020-2021. So other than that, though, hasn't really played a full season. 68 points last year, 33 goals. So if he stays healthy and plays like he did last year, he should be able to hit both of those. But no interest there for me. Barzal, 21.5 goals, 73.5 points. He had 23 goals last year in 80 games played and 80 points.
That's a ton for Barzal, though. 23, never shoots the puck. 23 is actually not that bad for Barzal.
Yeah, and really you would think he should really shoot the puck.
He got barely any on the power play.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he hit the 80 points last year, farther than the 73.5 here. He hit the goal total. Brock Nelson here had 34 goals last year, 36 the season before that. And then he had 37 in 21-22 when he actually only played 72 games. So he had more goals then. But the last 2 years he's played in 82 games for the Islanders. So when you're looking at player future bets, you really want a guy that's going to stay healthy if you're betting the over, at least on these type of things. And Nelson has been that guy. 2014, 2015, 82 games played. Next year, 81, 81, 82, 82. And then, of course, the shortened seasons. And then he missed 10 games in 21-22. But Nelson has stayed healthy a lot of his career. So his goal total here is 33.5. Of course, he's hit that the last 3 years. So I would look at that over. Point total 68.5. He had 69 last year, 75 the season before that. So again, I would lean with the over. Only 32, so he's starting to get up there, but he's still got some left in the tank. I think for the Islanders. Dobson, 66.5 points. He had 70 last year in 79 games played. The previous 2 years, he had 49 and 51. So he really took that step offensively last year. If you think he'll do it again, you could take his point total. Duclair, 23.5 goals. Last year he had 24, of course, playing with San Jose and Tampa Bay. Previous to that, he had injury seasons. He's the best season he had when it comes to games played was 81 in 2015, 2016. So fortunately, Duclair's had a hard time staying healthy, which is keeping me off his props. And then we've got the two goalies. Most teams only have one goalie for win totals, but the Islanders have two here. I was kind of talking to Nick about this before the show. Varlamov at 12.5. If Sorokin is not, if he doesn't play to the ability that he did prior to last year, I can see Patrick Waugh giving Varlamov starts. Obviously, Patrick Waugh has history with Varlamov, and I could see Varlamov playing enough games to where he hits that 12.5 total. And then with Sorokin, there's question marks for me with him, but I would lean with the under. If I like Varlamov over, then I would kind of lean with Sorokin under. And then Patrick Waugh to win the Jack Adams. I had to put something there for awards, so that's what I chose, but no play there for me. So basically on this sheet here, Brock Nelson goals would be a lean for me, and then Varlamov over wins would be a lean for me. Scott, player future bets. Do you like anything here on this list?
Yeah, Varlamov I'm tempted by, especially with Sorokin off back surgery. I'm wondering if they're going to ease him back into it, especially if he struggles. There's a chance he gets re-injured. But I do think that you're going to see a decent committee between the two of them. And the fact is Varlamov finished with 14 wins last year, but I got to reiterate how much he carried this team down the stretch because the Islanders won 7 of the last 8 starts. He was phenomenal in March and April. So I do think that if you want to build on that, maybe there's a bit of trust there that's now built in on behalf of Waugh, who has experience with Varlamov, as you said before. I like the over there. Sorokin, I'm going to stay away from. Too many concerns about injury, so I don't really take the 28.5. Duclair's number feels like dead on. That feels right to me, so I'm not going to bother. Dobson points over I like. I think for a guy that's now the captain of the power play or the quarterback of the power play, I do think that the points number feels a bit low. Dobson's a guy that is also, as you said before, in a contract year. So he might have a little bit of extra incentive to maybe put up even a better showing. But Dobson was solid last year on the power play. The power play was surprisingly decent, which is a step up from what we've seen from this team for the last couple years. That was my main one. The Barzell one, I always want the goals to be there, but he never shoots enough, and that's always annoying. Points could be there if you like him to actually get a bunch of assists. Horvat, that feels right to me. Nelson feels right. I don't mind the over on points for Nelson. But I think my main ones will be Varlamov wins, and I actually like Dobson a lot. I think 6.5 is a bit too low. For a guy that you said took the leap, he got more responsibility. He became the main guy on the power play, and he was pretty good with it. So give me Dobson over his points at 6.5 minus 115.
You almost talked me onto it. That was a great breakdown. I loved it. Nick, what do you think here? Player future bets for the Isles.
Yeah, I'll touch on the Dobson point there. I'll take his over points, and I'll take it one further, and I would take a sprinkle at 16-1 for him to win the Norris. If we think he can take a step up on the power play and able to put up more points, he is somebody who, if he plays enough games and he puts up good enough numbers, I think can be in that conversation at the end of the year. Now, is he going to win it? Probably not. But could he be one of those where you get him at 16-1 and he finishes in the top 3 and you feel halfway decent about the bet? Sure. I would probably look towards Barzell over points rather than goals because he's more of an assist guy, especially with Bo Horvat and Duclair on that line. He's going to be more of the playmaker rather than the goal scorer. And I think if you like with that Jack Adams there with Patrick Waugh, I think that's a better bet than if you than like the Metro division, because I think if we remember back at the last side, it was either 10-1 or 12-1 for the Metro. If the Islanders happen to win the Metro, Patrick Waugh is winning the Jack Adams if they win the Metro. So I think if you like that shot, I would take the shot at 30-1 rather than 10 or 12-1 if you like that. I'm not saying they do, but I'm saying if you like potentially value on that, I'm saying there's more value on Waugh to win the award there. So that's kind of where I would look. Barzell over points, Dobson over points, with maybe a sprinkle on the Norris. If you think Sorokin can bounce back this year, he's 10-1 to win the Vezina, rather than I think he was 4-1 last year or whatever preseason. He was one of the favorites to win the Vezina. So there's that. But yeah, probably Dobson would be the one guy I would kind of circle.
Awesome. Do either of you want to say anything before we finish off the show?
Go Islanders.
Yeah, go Islanders.
Go Islanders.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you guys on the next NHL season preview show. And make sure to give both guys a follow. Their Twitter links are in the description below. Thanks, guys.